You should note that we've moved on from the influences to the processes of human resource management. So we're going to be looking a lot more at like the nuts and bolts of human resource management. So we're going to start by looking at the process here from start to finish. So acquisition, which is also known as hiring. We need to hire workers, and that means things like getting the right applicants to apply, screening them so you get rid of all the junk ones, selecting the right one, and then even having an orientation program to make sure that they know things like workplace health and safety and all that, so it doesn't become a problem later. The next step in the human resource process is development. And this is also called training. So this is things like, planning the training and then working out what kind of mix of on-the-job training and off-the-job training we're going to do as a business. The third step is maintenance. Now, I know it's not something really for the Band 6 people, but for everyone who's not, familiar with that word, you do need to know how to spell it. It becomes a problem. You go, yeah, maintenance, yeah, I know. But, maintenance. It's something that, although it seems like a stupid thing, markers generally will just go, I'm sick of seeing that. Like separation is also another word that people spell incorrectly, and you're not getting marked on your spelling, but you do have the markers do have this level of discretion where they can go, you know what? I didn't get a good feel from that, so if I have to choose between 7 and 8, I'm going to choose 7, right? And one mark can make an enormous difference. Anyway, so maintenance is all about keeping your workers. What monetary rewards are you going to use? What non-monetary rewards are you going to use? What kind of working conditions are you going to make sure that they have? So that's all about keeping the workers, maintaining the workers, the maintenance process. The final part of the process is separation. So this could be, this is all about losing workers, whether it's voluntarily, so resignation, so quitting. It could be retirement, or it could be voluntary redundancy. We can look at why that is the way it is. And then we're going to look at involuntary separation, or losing someone involuntarily to them. So things like dismissal, so sacking them, and involuntary redundancy. So those are all the different processes that we're going to look at through this third section. We're going to start with this first one, this acquisition process. So we're going to look at acquisition, which is another difficult word to spell. It's also known as recruitment, and the way you pronounce it is recruitment. I hear people say sometimes recruitment, and I go, oh, no, don't do that. Might just be where I work. So the acquisition process has a few decisions that need to be made. The first decision is, do you promote a current worker to the job, or do you hire someone from outside the business? Now, these have their advantages and disadvantages, and I'm really going to focus on the advantages and disadvantages all through this processes section, because this is where you get the marks. This is kind of evaluating which one is the best one, especially for Section 3. Section 3, you have to write a business report where you have to make recommendations. What are those recommendations going to be based on? Not just the definitions of these things, on which one is right for that business. What do you need to know? The advantages and disadvantages of each decision. So we're going to look at internal recruitment. The advantages, obviously it's cheaper, right? You don't need to go and, put it in the paper and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes there's a requirement that you do, but you don't need to go through all that if you're not legally required to. It also becomes a good motivator for the employees that are there, because if they keep seeing people get promoted in the business, if they say, oh, congratulations, Jim from accounting, you've been promoted, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, good work, Jim, that becomes a motivator for the rest of the staff, because they go, hey, you know what? I could get that promotion as well. It's not just some guy from outside or some woman from outside. That was someone who worked right next to me and he got promoted, so I could get promoted too. And then type, work, right? So those are the advantages, but there are some disadvantages. If you do it all the time, if you only ever, hire people at the bottom and then they work their way up, if you only, hire from internally, you don't get any new perspectives brought into the business. It might take a fresh set of eyes to look at the business and go, you know what? I come from outside this business. I come from another business, and this is how we used to do things, and that really worked. And you go, oh, we would never have thought of that. It can also create some unhealthy competition between the workers. If you and the person next to you are both going for a job, it's going to create some competition between you, and it might even lead to things like, sabotaging their work, or not taking responsibility and blaming other people and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of unhealthy competition. Healthy competition is fine. That sort of motivating, competition, that's fine. You both work really hard, but you could actually, try to sabotage each other so that the other person doesn't get the job, and that becomes a problem. When it comes to external recruitment, hiring someone from outside the business, the advantage is you're going to get that new perspective. You're going to get that new set of eyes, that fresh set of eyes, that other set of experiences that are going to be brought in from another business, hopefully from a competing business, because you're probably going to be hiring someone who used to work for your competitor. So you want to find out what used to go on there, what was their way of doing things. It also means that you have a lot more choice, because you're not just choosing between the two people who have gone for the job inside the business. You could be choosing from hundreds of different people, and having more choice is going to give you more options. Now, the disadvantages, it's going to be more expensive. You're going to have to take a lot more time to go through the external process, and you might even have to hire someone, externally to do this external process. It's going to be more expensive, and it's going to take more time. It also means that the existing workers might feel unappreciated, right? They're going to feel like, well, why didn't they hire me? Like, I was next in line for a promotion, and then they went outside and they got someone, completely different. I'm not working hard anymore. I'm just going to do the minimum. So that motivation is gone. The second decision that you need to make when acquiring workers in the acquisition process is, do you do it yourself, or do you outsource this job of finding the right people to HR specialists? And there are entire businesses whose job it is to try to find the right people for your business. If you use your own HR department, obviously it's going to be cheaper. It might end up being a bit more expensive in terms of time lost, but you don't have to pay an external consultant or external consultants or an external business to do this process. It also means that if you're using your own people who have worked in the business for years, they are going to know the right person, the right fit, the person who's going to fit into the business's culture. Now, you can kind of explain your culture to a HR specialist. You can say, well, we have a very creative culture, and then they just give you 3 resumes of people with piercings, right? That might not be what you were talking about. So you can't really explain the business's culture. You have to live the culture to really understand it. So that is why you might use your own HR department or your own HR person, or if you're a smaller business, doing it yourself, because you know whether someone's going to fit in or not. When it comes to disadvantages, it's going to take longer, right? It's going to take a lot longer than, getting a specialist to do it. In smaller businesses, you might not have any HR experts at all who are going to be able to do it. You might not have any idea how to hire the right people because you've never hired anyone before. You've never read a resume before. You might just see, oh, this one has a nice font, and then you pick that person. You may not know what the qualifications are, or whether this person is lying or whatever. You might not know those things. So even though everyone thinks they're an expert on judging other people and picking the right person, they're probably not. If you're a guy, you're just going to pick the hottest girl. That's just the way it's going to work. When it comes to outsourcing to a HR specialist, so remember, this is not outsourcing the job of operations. This is not outsourcing production. We're outsourcing the job of hiring someone, or the job of finding a group of people who would be good to hire, a group of people to interview. The advantage is it's going to save time for you. If you're a manager and you outsource it to someone else, to another business, it's going to save a lot of time. And the HR business is going to specialize in finding the right applicants. So they should be better at it, right? They should be really, really good at it. Otherwise, there's no point in people hiring them. If they've built a business hiring the right people for other businesses, then chances are they're probably going to be pretty good at it. The disadvantage is, again, the culture. The HR business is not going to know the culture of your business. They might not pick that right person. They might just, misunderstand the culture completely and give you 3 resumes or 3 names and say, these are the people that we think are good for you. But the same way that, it usually doesn't work when someone tries to set you up with someone. It hasn't happened to me. I'm married for years. But if you try to set someone up with someone else, you might think it's a good fit, but they might just think he's ugly, right? So it can also be expensive as well. So you kind of have to weigh up the cost of, all right, how much is my time worth as a manager or as an owner, to be doing this process? How much is my time worth and how much is it going to cost to get somebody else to do it. And that's kind of the outsourcing choice, in a nutshell. The third decision that has to get made is, how do you find and attract the right people to apply for the job? Now, this happens in different ways for different types of jobs. So if I've just got like an arrow here, like a continuum, from simple jobs to really highly specialized, high level, kind of executive level positions. So how do you attract people at these different levels? If you just need someone for a simple job, you can just go to an employment agency. If you need like a day laborer, you need someone, to lay bricks or something like that. If you need a bricklayer or someone, you can just go to an employment agency. They're gonna, find someone for you, right? If the work is not really skilled, if it's just, hard work, and I do respect people who do hard work rather than skilled work, because I couldn't do it. So you can just go to an employment agency because it's going to be more straightforward. Most of the time, you're going to have some sort of advertisement. So advertisements kind of go along the spectrum. You may not have a full-page ad in the Sydney Morning Herald to hire a bricklayer. So really, it's the middle jobs, the jobs that aren't really simple, but aren't really like executive jobs either, that are going to get these advertisements, printed in newspapers or in trade, journals or whatever. And right up the top, you're going to have these people known as headhunters. Now, headhunters are people who seek out higher level positions. You are not, just going to put an ad in the paper for the CEO of a company. You are going to find a CEO for a competing company, and you are going to hunt them down in a nice way. You are going to say, hey, you hire a headhunter. The headhunter knows, how to find them, and they take them to dinner, and they say, hey, look, I'm going to write down a number on a piece of paper and all that sort of stuff. And they know exactly how to attract the right people. All the way along, though, you also have word of mouth. And that can be for simple jobs all the way through to executive jobs. People hire other people just because their friends have recommended them. People within the business have recommended them. It's just the word of mouth that kind of spreads about a job. Now, that can happen really at any level. So that's how you find and attract the right people to apply. The fourth decision that needs to be made is, once people have applied, how do you screen them? How do you create a shortlist? How do you cut out the ones that are really no good? So really, the two things that you need to ask. Firstly, can they do the job well? So you look at their skills, their qualifications. Sometimes they have like legal qualifications, like, do they have their RSA, RCG and all that? Are they actually a doctor, or is their first name just doctor? You are going to have qualifications that are required, and you're going to have to look at their experience as well. How do you find out about their skills and qualifications and experience? Well, you'd probably start by looking at their resume. You could test them. You could test their skills, test their knowledge. You could ask their referees, how are their skills in this area and that area. You might even have a probationary period where you say, look, you're hired for this month on a probationary period, we're going to see whether you do have the skills to do this. You might also, during an interview, ask scenario questions. So what would you do if blah, 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 blah. And that's how you can find out if someone is going to react well. They might give an entirely false answer and do the exact opposite in the real situation. But how are you supposed to know until the situation actually comes up without hiring every single person that applies and making them do the job for a year and then seeing whether they did a good job? You need to be able to make a judgment a lot more quickly than that. The second thing that you need to ask is, are they going to fit into the business? How do you find out if they're going to fit in? Well, you look at their previous work experience. Where did they work before? What kind of workplaces are those? You can look at their personality. You can look at their work ethic, whether they're workaholics or whatever. How do you find those things out, though? Well, you'd probably start by getting a general impression from them in the interview. Whether their personality and the way they dress and all that sort of stuff. All those like secret judgments that happen when you go to a job interview. You could also do some personality testing rather than skill testing or knowledge testing. They have psychological testing for a lot of jobs now, and that can tell you whether they have the right personality. It's like finding out whether they're going to go nuts or whether they're going to crack under pressure without just asking them, excuse me, are you going to crack under pressure? Because everyone's going to say no, unless they really crack under pressure of the question and they say, oh yes, I will. And the last thing is, again, you can use a probationary period to find out whether they do actually fit in to the business culture. The last decision that needs to be made is selecting that best applicant. Now, they're going to have to go through some sort of formal orientation once they've been selected. So you need to explain what their role is. You need to show how this particular workplace operates. And you need to try to make them feel welcome, because they're a pretty big investment now. You've turned down other people that could have done the job to choose this person. Going through that whole process again is going to be a real pain. It's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of time. So you need to try and make sure that once you've chosen the right applicant, you don't just treat them badly. You have to treat them well to keep them there so they don't quit on the first day. You need to explain their role to them to stop bad things from happening later, in terms of what they're doing and whether they're doing their job. If they don't know what they're doing, if you haven't explained their role to them, very, very specifically, then they may not even know what they're doing wrong, and you're going to have problems down the line. So that's the whole acquisition process.